The reverberations still continue after the FBI raided Donald Trump's house in Florida. The person I most wanted to talk to about this is none other than the legendary broadcaster Megyn Kelly. The only place you'll see her anywhere in the Australian media is here on Paul Murray Live. And we talked about how obviously a line has been crossed here.
There's no question a red line was crossed, and there's no uncrossing it now. That horse has left the barn, and the people are angry. I mean, I haven't seen this much anger on the right wing since Obamacare was jammed down our throats, President Obama's health care plan that nobody wanted. They feel, and this, I'm talking about never Trumpers, moderate Republicans, never mind the MAGA hardcore base who are organizing right now. I mean, they're so angry that some of the more red online sites are saying, hold your fire, rhetorically, saying don't go out there and do another January 6th. We don't want a riot. We don't want anything that makes the party look bad. The plan here is electoral vengeance, not violence and not riots. But that's how mad the right wing is about this. And it's not about, does Trump have classified documents down at Mar-a-Lago, his place in Florida? That's a mirage. That's window dressing. That, in my belief, is a lie by the Justice Department to justify its nosing around in Trump's home. What they want is what they've wanted for 2 years. They want proof that Trump orchestrated January 6th, that he knew it was going to be violent and wanted it to be, and that he knew he had lost the election and was actively defrauding his base and the American populace when he said anything to the contrary. That's what they're really looking for. They lied, in my view, to this judge. Yes, there's been a controversy about documents and whether he's got them, but that was a pretext for them to get in there and start nosing around for what they consider the Holy Grail.
Well, and again, in relation to the documents themselves, boxes of documents that came out of the White House, the National Archives, slowly negotiated for most of them to come back. So it's not like there wasn't the ability for some pen pusher somewhere to send an email, make a call, knock on the door, and eventually get these things out. Instead, I think you're right, which is that I couldn't help but think that image last night that everyone saw of the red and blue lights out the front of Mar-a-Lago. And it was almost like a Rorschach test about how you interpreted that. But I remember just watching the early minutes of this news. I'm flicking around between all the different cable channels, and the lefty ones thought this was the beginning of him being put in the electric chair. Like, they were frothing at what worst case scenario, when previously, Sandy Berger, of course, the national security advisor to Bill Clinton, when he decided to literally shove secret documents in his duds and then hide them under a boat, he ended up being found guilty and get a $50,000 fine. So this is not a capital offence, but they were carrying on yesterday like they had just found a dead hooker.
This is all the same group that told us it was a nothing, that Hillary Clinton had 30,000 emails on her private server, many of which were classified. But unlike Hillary Clinton, who was the Secretary of State, Donald Trump, as president, had the ability to declassify anything. The label classified is almost meaningless for a sitting president because he's the one who gets to decide, no, it isn't. And so as long as he declassified those things while he was actually the president, he has zero problems on that front. Now, if he took classified documents down to Mar-a-Lago with him once he was post his presidency, different story. But even that is slap on the wrist territory. I mean, that's, if you're not going to go after Hillary Clinton with the number of things she had and destroyed while under subpoena, how on earth can you justify going after Donald Trump, who, as you point out, has been working with the National Archives to return all this stuff, most of which is going to wind up in his presidential library anyway? That is a lie. Don't be distracted. This isn't about classified documents. It's about January 6th and preventing Donald Trump from running again, never mind winning again.
You, of course, famously interviewed Alex Jones, and part of the Alex Jones stuff towards the end of his trial was that his idiot lawyers gave over a whole cache of information off his phone, and that apparently was going to be smoking gun texts between, Trump, Roger Stone, as if they're all on some WhatsApp group trying to, move the chess pieces around the board. That's where sort of the fever pitch started last week, and then this document stuff takes it somewhere else. But there was a little bit in the middle that I wanted to talk about, which is the way that the establishment media works in the US, where Maggie Haberman, who's a all-in obsessive Trump derangement syndrome person for the New York Times, she has a story that appeared 24 hours ago. Oh, here's a couple of photos of some torn up bits of paper in a toilet, and then magically, within 24 hours, there ends up being the raid on something that supposedly had been weeks in action, which means she was being selectively leaked something as the beginning of a pretext to do what they did yesterday. And that in and of itself is a little sidebar. It's not the main game, but it is such an insight into the way the intelligence agencies are working at the moment, which is they work the media as much as they work the courts.
It's a very good point. Very good point, Paul, because what she showed in her little photos of toilets with papers in them, tiny remnants of papers, I have no idea. I don't know what it was. I looked at it like everybody else did, trying to figure out what it said. One of them appeared to be Trump's handwriting in his big black Sharpie. The other one I couldn't tell. How the hell do we know whether that's relevant to anything? It could be Trump's little note to himself, like, don't forget your little blue pill. Oh, that's embarrassing. I'm going to flush that one down the toilet. I don't want to have to hand that over to the archives. Like, we don't know what the hell it was or whether it had any relevance to anything, right? So she takes that and blows it up. And then the next day, a pre-dawn raid with over 30 agents at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate, at his home. Unprecedented in the history of the United States. The FBI has never raided the home of a former president, nor has a president ever been targeted in this way, potentially for criminal prosecution. This is not going to stand. First of all, Merrick Garland, who absolutely had to approve of this, the sitting attorney general, same guy who wanted to come after parents as domestic terrorists for standing up and objecting to COVID restrictions like the mandatory vaccines and the mandatory masks, same guy. We were told he was going to be nonpartisan. Anything but. He needs to come out and explain himself. He needs to justify why he's politicized the Department of Justice and the FBI, two organizations that are supposed to be apolitical and looking out for everybody. All this is happening at the same time, Paul, where Joe Biden just had the Senate pass his bill calling for 87,000 more IRS agents. 87,000 more people working for the federal government so that they can investigate Joe and Mary's taxes at home. Do we trust them? Do we trust any of these guys? It's eroding by the second, and unless Merrick Garland gets in front of the cameras and tries to explain to us in ways that both sides can understand, it's going to continue to spiral downward.
How progressive of you. Joan and Mary, you mentioned a lesbian couple who own an antique shop in Maine. I appreciate it. Now, last one here, which is the inevitable, and none of us truly know, but your sense of things, and you mentioned about how energising the Obamacare stuff was, where Obamacare went on for 10 years as a fundamental thing driving Republican votes. When you see that never-Trumpers and hardcore MAGA have reacted the way that they have done, I think that the concept of the Trump nomination was a little bit wobbly. But I got to say, this thing now is put it all on red, and by that I mean his hair.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they have given Donald Trump a boost of adrenaline to his campaign and his chances, unlike any we have seen since he left office. They have completely resurrected him beyond the damage that he caused with the whole January 6th and election-denying nonsense. They've done that. The Democrats, the FBI, the DOJ, they have themselves to thank for the resurrection of Trump politically right now.